watching Channel 5 News with your lead anchors, Danny Filippelli
and Connor Dean. How you doing tonight, Danny?
Doing well. How are you doing, Connor?
I'm doing pretty well myself.
What do we got on tonight's plate for tonight?
Tonight's plate for tonight consists of drugs. How are they affecting our towns and cities? And what is recent public opinion on drugs? Recently, Colorado and Washington State legalized marijuana for recreational use. This is huge. This is huge in the world of marijuana prohibition. And that's not all we're going to talk about tonight. We're also going to talk about public opinion on what's going on, man. That's really good. What?
What?
Man,
Let's go. Tonight's news, we go to Avery, our journalist, interviewing some drug users.
Avery?
Thank you, Connor. Avery here from Channel 5 News. Earlier today, I went out on the streets to interview some of our fellow residents in Canton. Surprisingly, not a lot of people wanted to be on live television talking about drugs. But today, I'll be talking to one willing mother who surprisingly doesn't know much about psychedelics, but we'll talk to her. Before we play the clip, here's some information about three main psychedelics. First, LSD. It stands for lysergic acid diethylamide. What are some of the street names? Some of them are acid, doses, hits, sugar cubes, tabs, or trips. Acid, or LSD, is most common hallucinogen and is one of the most potent mood-changing chemicals. It is manufactured from lysergic acid, and it is found in ergot, which is a fungus that grows on rye or other grains. What does it look like? Well, LSD is usually found on blotter paper. It's squares or tabs that may be colored or have images on them. Liquid acid is a clear liquid, usually in a small container or tube or flask. And LSD can be found in thin squares of gelatin. And it's taken orally, or it can be taken by gelatin or liquid drops put in the eyes. Some of the short-term effects of LSD depends on the amount taken, the user's personality, their mood, expectations, and the surroundings in which the drug is used. The physical effects, including dilated pupils, higher blood temperature, increased heart rate, and blood pressure, sweating, loss of appetite, sleepiness, dry mouth, and tremors. Sensations and feelings change much more dramatically than the physical signs that you see. The user may feel several different emotions at once or swing rapidly from one emotion to another. If taken in a large enough dose, the drug produces delusions and visual hallucinations. So the user's sense of time and self changes as well. Sensations may seem to cross over, giving the user may feel some hearing colors. Sensations may seem to cross over, giving the user the feeling of hearing colors and seeing sounds. These changes can be frightening and cause panic, but most users of LSD voluntarily decrease or stop their use over time, and LSD is not considered to be an addicting drug because it does not produce compulsive drug-seeking behavior like cocaine, amphetamines, heroin, alcohol, or nicotine. Moving on to our second psychedelic, mushrooms. Some street names for mushrooms are caps, magic mushrooms, psilocybin, or shrooms. Psilocybin and psilocin are hallucinogenic principles found in certain mushrooms. These magic mushrooms are generally grown in Mexico and Central America and have been used in native rituals for thousands of years. They usually just look like dried up mushrooms, and they're used by being eaten, or they can be brewed and consumed into tea. Some of the short-term effects of mushrooms are once ingested, mushrooms generally cause feeling of nausea before the desired mental effects appear. The high Some of the short-term effects of mushrooms are once ingested, the mushrooms generally cause feelings of nausea before the desired mental effects actually appear. The high from using magic mushrooms is mild and may cause altered feelings and distorted perceptions of touch, sight, sound, and taste. Other effects can include nervousness and paranoia. Effects can be different during each use due to varying potency, the amount ingested, the user's expectations, their mood, surroundings, and their frame of mind. On some trips, users experience sensations that are enjoyable. Others can include terrifying thoughts and anxiety, feels of insanity, death, or losing control. Some of the long-term effects on mushrooms are some magic mushroom users experience flashbacks or hallucinogenic persisting perception disorder, which is short for HPPD, which are reoccurrences of hallucinations long after ingesting the drug, and the causes of these effects are not known yet. Now, having discussed these 3 psychedelics, I like to roll the clip of me interviewing a fellow citizen earlier today, a mother who doesn't know quite as much about psychedelics. Alright, and I'm here in the Taylor residence. Thank you, Elizabeth, for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Please call me Beth.
Alright, Beth. So, starting off with the first of the 3 psychedelics, do you know anything about LSD or have you heard of it?
I've heard of LSD, and from what I remember, it's just a very dangerous, illegal drug, and it's highly addicting.
Okay, and you say remember, have you ever taken it before?
I've never taken it before. I just remember it being real prevalent back in the 70s and 80s.
Okay, alright. Mushrooms, have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of mushrooms. I'm not exactly sure how they're ingested or how it's broken down for people to consume, but I also understand that it's also an illegal drug and it's also very addicting.
Okay, do you know what it might look like?
I'm assuming it looks like a regular mushroom plant,
Okay.
but I don't know because I've never experienced with it.
Alright, and lastly, DMT, have you ever heard of that?
I've never heard of DMT.
Okay, alright. Anything else you want to add about your views on anything?
You know what, you can go talk to my son because he seems to know a lot about drugs. He has problems with drugs.
Okay, and
Okay.
signing off, back to you guys.
Hello, and welcome to Hard Drugs with your host, Danny Filippelli. First, we're going to talk about cocaine. Now I know what you're thinking. Cocaine. Don't do it, right? Cocaine's a very powerful addictive drug. And once having tried cocaine, not saying I've tried it, users cannot predict or control the extent to will they continue to use the drug. Some street names of cocaine that you might hear from your friends or family member, I don't know how you live, are coke, dust, toot, line, candy, white girl, snow, yay, the lady, white pony, flake, rock, and crack. What is cocaine, you ask? Cocaine is a drug, almost like a paste, extracted from the leaves of the South American cocoa plant. It is a strong stimulant that affects the body's central nervous system. It basically makes you feel like you're invincible and you can do whatever you want. You can take it by injecting it, you can smoke it, sniff it, or even snort it. Cocaine is a white crystalline powder and is often mixed with sugar, cornstarch, vitamins, and flour. Crack cocaine, on the other hand, is kind of like a rock, and it's easier to carry around in your pocket. Most people who use cocaine are 1% of Americans, or 2.1 million people are currently using cocaine. Users can be from all economic statuses, all ages, and all genders. Some bad things about cocaine are the effects that happen. You can get insomnia, loss of appetite, blurred vision, vomiting, high anxiety. On to our second drug. Yep, you guessed it, heroin. Again, it's a very highly addictive drug, and it's a serious problem in the United States. Some street names for heroin are smack, H, skunk, junk, BH, black tar heroin, brown sugar, dope, horse, junk, and mudslide. What is heroin? Heroin is a highly addictive drug, like I said, and it's processed from morphine. And if you know what I'm talking about, morphine, when you go to the hospital from breaking a leg or something, they give it to you and it have you feeling. Our last drug on today's agenda is methamphetamine. It's closely related to the other drug, amphetamine. Both drugs have some medical uses, primarily in the treatment of obesity, but their therapeutical use is often limited. Some street names for meth are speed, meth, chalk, ice, crystal, crystal meth, the jib, crank, croak, crypto, crystal, fire, glass, tweak, and white cross. The tweak is heavy. What is methamphetamine? It is an addictive stimulant that strongly activates certain system in the brain that speeds up not only the body's central nervous system, but also speeds up everything else. It was originally marketed as a nasal congestant and currently used medically in the US for treating obesity, which I didn't even know that. What does it look like? Meth is either a white or yellowish crystalline powder, and sometimes appears as a large, hard rock. It is odorless and has a bitter taste, if you ask me. I'm just kidding. Methamphetamine can only be taken orally, snorted through the nose, or injected. I wouldn't advise smoking it because I've seen videos of that and it just doesn't go down right. Who uses it? The most common users of methamphetamine used to be an adult male with a lower than average income. However, this has changed now that users can be from all economic statuses, like I said. The effects of methamphetamine are, if it is smoked or injected, the user will feel a strong sensation resembling a vibration or rush, which diminishes within a few minutes. Users who snort or swallow meth experience a feeling of temporary inertia. Meth users will become talkative, confident, and other times paranoid, aggressive, or agitated. It only takes a very small amount of meth to produce any of these effects. Some short-term effects: you could vomit, you could have diarrhea, definitely increased respiration, increased physical activity, increased wakefulness, and dryness of the mouth. That's why people have caught mouth sometimes. Some long-term effects are your whole body will be messed up. If you ever seen videos of people taking meth, the before and after pictures, it doesn't look good. You look horrible. So I wouldn't advise taking meth at all. Thank you, and I hope you like my hard drugs. I mean, I hope you didn't like the hard drugs, but I hope you learned something from it. And this is Danny Filippelli from Channel 5 News, signing off. Okinawa.
This is great reporting, Danny.
Thank you.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
Well done. Very impressed.
Worked very hard on it.
Did you?
Yes.
I could tell. Put a lot of time into that, didn't you?
Oh yeah. A lot of time,
Good for
a lot of lines.
Don't say that though. Don't say that though. Anyways, transitioning. Here's our reporter Zach in the field with the history of drugs. Zach.
Thank you, Connor. Even in prehistoric times, there's evidence of drugs. Some evidence shows that psychoactive plants have been used as far back as 10,000 years ago in ritual ceremonies. Some, like David Lewis Williams of the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg of South Africa, even suggest that cave paintings of Paleolithic Upper Europeans were products of shaman in drugged or self-induced trances. As societies emerged and evolved, so did the use of drugs. In early American civilizations, evidence of peyote, which is a desert plant that has hallucinogenic effects, has been found in grave sites dating back to 300 BCE. And also in African murals dating back as far as 9000 BCE to 7000 BCE, evidence of mushrooms with the same type of effects can be found, which a very, very small percent of scholars believe to have led to human creativity. China also has a history of drugs, including the use of marijuana. In one shaman's gravesite, some still green marijuana was found, and even though it is known that ancients used cannabis for hemp, tests proved stash possessed psychoactive properties. Also in China's drug history is the use of opium, which in the 1800s led to 2 wars between the Qing dynasty and the British. Yet, this is not the only drug-related war in history. America declared war on drugs over 40 years ago during Nixon's administration. During this time, drugs, especially marijuana, was seen as a sign of youthful rebellion by a generation that had views of the drug demonstrated in films such as Reefer Madness. This war on drugs led to increased incarnation rates and increased criminalization of drug users. During this war on drugs, the use of what is known as hardcore drugs, such as cocaine and heroin, increased, especially in the 1980s, where a crack epidemic was declared. In the 1990s, club drugs such as ecstasy and designer drugs such as meth, which can be made from household products, were in high use as the rave scene grew. This trend of making drugs out of homemade products turned into the use of prescription medicine as a drug. Now painkillers or prescription medicine has increased in recreational use in all ages and has even coined the term pill popping. In this day of age, almost 50 years after the war on drugs was declared, it is easy to see that the idea has changed. Now the use of drugs is almost cosmopolitan. Whether it be psychedelic drugs such as mushrooms or prescription painkillers, it seems as if almost everybody all over the world has experimented with some kind of drug. Back to you guys.
Thanks and welcome back, Zach. That was an awesome report. Danny, would you agree?
Oh, 100%. Great report.
Absolutely. Danny, what do we have going on next?
We actually have our own Connor Dean talking about marijuana. So let's go to Connor Dean right now.
Connor Dean here with Channel 5 News. I'm hanging out with my friend Travis Trout. Travis, introduce yourself.
What's up, my name is Ray Quinte.
Ray Quinte. Alright everyone, Ray Quinte here with me. Ray Quinte, can you give us a little background on yourself? How old are you?
19 years old.
And where do you go to school?
Schoolcraft Community College.
So, do you smoke weed, Ray Quinte?
Hell yeah.
How much would you say you smoke?
About 3 times a day.
Okay. Now, are you, by chance, a medical marijuana patient?
Yes, I am.
Are you? And what is your condition?
I have severe and chronic back pain, actually.
Let's see. And what was the process like when you got your medical marijuana?
Oh, well, the process was like for all states. You go get an application for your state, take it to a specific doctor that specializes in medical marijuana, and you go do a meeting with him. He checks you out, see if you qualify for whatever qualifying regulations for each state, depending on where you live. For Michigan, there's about 7 different things, I think, that you can get it for, which is like AIDS, cancer, HIV, severe and chronic pain, and then it goes on. But yeah, I know a little bit about it.
Alright, cool. Now, you're familiar with like marijuana prohibition and stuff, right?
No, I mentioned that. Can you tell me about it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, there was a guy named William Rudolph Hearst, and he was a paper tycoon.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what I mean by that, right?
Yeah.
He everything he did, he made money off paper.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this new product that was coming out, and it was called hemp.
Yeah.
And
The male plant of cannabis.
right,
Yes.
right.
I'm familiar with that a little bit. Learned a little bit in science class.
Okay. Well, are you familiar with how fast the hemp plant grows?
Yeah, I think it goes in cycles of about like 3 months.
Yeah.
Depending on what strain.
Absolutely. So it's really, really easy to harvest. It grows really fast, and it's really, really cheap. This hemp was going to be an alternative to paper because you could use it to make a lot of stuff. There just needed to be a processing machine that could process the hemp fast enough for production. The processing machine was called decoagulator, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably butchering that, but it's as close as I can get.
Okay.
Anyways, so they were going to be able to mass produce hemp. Now, William didn't like that. So he owned a newspaper company, or he just owned a newspaper, and he printed an article about something called marijuana. Now, at the time in America, marijuana was called cannabis. It was still called cannabis. It wasn't called marijuana. Marijuana was a Mexican wild tobacco, and it had nothing to do with marijuana at all.
Yeah.
But the public
brought the dark cloud over the marijuana.
Right. And the public ate it up, so they really believed it. And all that being said, Congress passes a law that says
Makes
cannabis is a Schedule I drug and it's not legal anymore. So they took something that grows in the ground and made it illegal, which is kind of weird. He gets all this stuff shut down, and then a movie called Reefer Madness comes out, and that just ups the propaganda even more and just freaks people
Makes
out.
the people look like crackheads.
Right, and it says it like freaks teenagers out and makes them want to have sex and stuff. And then after Reefer Madness, there was the counterculture movement with hippies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the hippies in Woodstock and everything, doing the LSD and smoking weed all the time. That would have been funny. But yeah, so like through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, drug culture, especially like in the 80s, it was more like cocaine and stuff. I feel like
90s was.
Yeah.
90s was.
90s was cocaine too. I feel like they were all.
Yeah. No, 90s was like crack.
It was good talking to you, man.
Thank you, Connor. That was a wonderful report.
That's gonna be it for our drug special. I'm Connor Dean,
And I'm Danny Filippelli.
and it's been nice knowing ya.
Or has it?